So yeah, let me share the screen. Try screen. Yeah. Okay. So once again, welcome guys. Welcome to this talk. This is about understanding state in compose. Little bit about myself. I'm Ankit Kumar. I'm working currently in the Gojek as an Android engineer. I'm also Android educator in the Google, Android educator program. And yeah, that's a simple introduction about me. So, hope you guys have started or might be heard of Jetpack Compose. So basically, in the initial video, like in the last talk about the Jetpack Compose, we have discussed regarding UI components, and layouts, how we can create UIs in the Jetpack Compose, and how we can use the those UI components to create UI, and how they are, what are the different type of layouts there in the Jetpack Compose, and how we can do all those UI part only. So in this session, we will be more talk about Jetpack state, because it's really important in Jetpack Compose, because Jetpack Compose is a declarative UI, right? You don't have because since Jetpack Compose is declarative UI, it does not return anything, right? So how can you update the state, right? So you have to understand how you can update the state. What are the different method or technique that you guys can use to update the state in Jetpack Compose? So those things I'll be explaining in the session today. Hope you guys get some idea for today's talk. Okay. So basically, what this state is any value that can change over a period of time, right? Example could be there are a lot of example, but two example that I found very friendly is that showing, task, or maybe toast. I think I should recorrect it. Toast or maybe snack bar. When the internet status get changed. For example, when you open the YouTube, when you close your internet connection, you can see the snack bar, right? That you are offline or something, right? And when your internet come back, it shows in the green status that you are online. So that what the state is, right? That toast is getting updated, right? The text of the toast or snack bar is get updated. So that's the state of that snack bar. Second is a comment associated with the block. So comments is basically, let's say you have written a block and somebody commented out. It's a one comment for now, right? If somebody else also second person returns some comment, so your list of comments get updated. So that's also some kind of state, right? The size of your list is get updated. So that's basically a state getting updated, right? So you have to understand this is the state that can change any period of time. Don't think about variable or classes, just think like this. Anything that can change over a period of time, it could be class, it could be variable, those things. So that's what the state is. Okay. For example, let's see in the code for the compose here. Okay, you can see we have created text with the outline text field. So this is kind of edit text in XML, okay? And this text is normally a text view in XML. So here you can see we in the compose they have different properties to update the UI part. So these properties are, if you wanted to add text, then there is a text property, then modifier, style, and in the outline text, this is the value that will be will be get on the edit text, okay? Now this is the callback. Whenever some value get changed, this callback get called, and this is label, right? Which is under label or upper level for the edit text or outline text in this case. So this is the basic UI. Okay. Now you can see here we are providing the static values to these UIs, right? Which is hello, which is label as name, and value as empty here. Okay. Now in the case of XML or like imperative UI, so what happened is that they have classes, right? There is a view class and there are edit text class. So right, you can create the object from there and you can call the method of dot set text, right? So you are creating an object and you are updating the method, or you are updating the text using a method, right? So there is a way to update it, right? But since in compose there is no returnable object or anything, how can you able to update the the text here. If I wanted to update, there is only one way, is that you need to provide a variable here, right? Which can change some period of time. So this is what the state is here, right? So same thing in the outline text. There is a value called empty here. Okay, so now it's a static. Empty is static. If somebody start typing it out, right, on that edit text or outline text field, the person would not see anything. Okay, because always the value is empty here, right? You are not updating this state of this, outline text field or edit text. So people who are writing the text would not able to see any update on the edit text or outline text field in this case, right? So you have to handle the state in Jetpack Compose in order to update the UI. Okay, so this is the basic example to understand this state. If you guys get a little bit idea what the state actually means in Compose, and since this, as you know, in the Compose is very intelligent. Okay, so why the Compose bring up in the first place is because in the tree of Jetpack Compose, only the component get updated whose parameter get updated. Other than that, other UI element will not get updated, right? So let's say in the example here, so you can see there's a text and there is a out text field. Now, let's say you have provided a variable here which can change, and this is the static one. So when the UI get redrawn again and again, so compiler would not re-execute this text, because it's static, right? It's kind of constant. They will not update it. Only those UI component get updated whose state get changed, right? Whose parameter get updated. So outline text parameter, as I said, is a variable. So only this UI component get updated. This is the advantage of Jupyter Compose, right? Only the only the parameter of UI component is kept get updated. Then only that UI component get updated. Other than that, other component will not get updated on the UI screen. So this is much more the performance wise, right? So you have to understand, which state you might get updated. So you have to create variable or state variable for those UI components, right? So this so that I will show how you can decide to create a variable or not to create variable, all those things. Okay, let's move to the life cycle of Compose here. So, life cycle of compose is basically tells you how the composition happen, when composition ends, and when recomposition happens. So, what the composition in enter, and what the leave of composition. Let's say when you create this this compose UI, you have the text and outline text field, right? So in the text, when the compiler execute this UI, it will enter in the composition. Okay, and whenever some parameter get updated for that UI component, right? For example, in this case, currently it does not have any state holding, right? It's static value, so it will not update anytime. So now recomposition is 0. So recomposition is something which is when the same compose get re-executed again, because parameter of that compose get updated. Okay, so in this case recomposition would not happen because we have static values, right? In every place, every parameter, there is a static value. We are not updating as a dynamic value, right? So recompose will be a 0 times. And when we leave the what is the mean of leave the composition is basically you are moved to different screen, or you might hide that compose, right? You are not using it anymore, so that would be a leave of composition. So that node will get detached from the tree, right? So this is what the life cycle of compose, to understand how composition life cycle works, right? So this is a overall high level of understanding of life cycle of compose. Okay, now, so okay, I wanted to understand one more thing to you guys about states. Okay, let's go to a board here. Okay, we are on the board. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys one thing here. Let's say, hmm, one second. Might be not working. Okay, okay. There's some technical issues here. Okay, let's remove this one. Let's create a new page. Yeah, that's working. Okay, so in the state, for example, you have the function, right? You have function called hello, and in this function of composable, right? You have to first of all make it composable annotation first, right? To make this function as a composable. Okay, now in composable, let's say you have text here. Okay, in this text is basically another composable function. So in this text, you have text field and you have provided a variable. For example, uh, var name here. Okay, and now this variable is get a variable Ankit, for example. Okay, now this variable get added here as a name, and you have outline text, right? That text field that I've been showing to you guys, that added text here. Okay, okay, outline text. So for example, in outline text, what would happen is there is a callback, right? For here we can see in the previous video, like in the previous slide, is that there is a own value change, right? For example, in the own value change, it is getting the callback. So now if I update the name here with this some name, random name else, what would happen in this case, right? So in this case, what would happen in compose is that it re-execute the whole compose, which is hello content. Okay. Now when the hello content is get re-executed, it will go to this column, and then it will go to the text. Now it will see if there is parameter get updated or not. So now I'm using name here, right, as a variable. So it says yes, this will updated. This is updated. Now when this is get updated, it will re-execute this text, right? And when this re-executed, whatever value you have provided here, it will not come here, right? Let's say your name is not updated here as a Ashish. Okay, now when recomposition start, the name value of the name here would still be a Ankit, right? Okay, why still is a Ankit is because when recomposition happens, when recomposition or like re-execution of the function happens, whatever this initial value was there, which was hello Ankit in this case, right? So when the recomposition happen, when re-execution of this function happens, it will again pick up name as a Ankit, not whatever value I provided as a name is equal to Ashish here in the own value change callback, right? So when the re-execution happens, it will not update. Why? Because it will again go to this var name. It is not saving anything in that function. Okay, so how you can, wanted to use the previous value and get updated, how you can do that? You have to use this remember here, remember API, right? Remember API helps you to store that variable, from the previous function, whatever value you have executed, and then using the previous one itself. Okay, so for example, if I use uh, if I use remember here as a variable to store variable, right? So now when I change name in this callback, name is equal to Ashish, the last updated Ashish would be there. It will not create new, like it will not re-execute, or it will make a reset to Ankit. It will remember that because I've used the remember API, right? This how you can able to remember your variable or your state when the re-execution happens, when the recomposition happens, because when the recomposition happens, everything get reset, kind of. In your function, everything will get resetted. Whatever variable you have provided, it will get reset to zero, or whatever initial value you have provided. So in this case, I have provided Ankit, so it will get re-executed as reset as Ankit. It will not take Ashish. So in order to preserve that value from the previous one, I have to use the remember API. So this is how you are able to store the state, internal state here in the function. Okay, so this is the remember API. So there are two remember API, which is remember remember savable. So savable is basically, okay, remember is only for recomposition. Now whenever your activity get restarted, destroy and recreated, so in this case you have to use the remember savable in order to have the internal state stored from the previous activity destroyed. So in those scenarios, you have to use this remember savable, but only for remember is only for the recomposition, right? So this is the key difference between remember and remember savable. Do understand this one. Remember stores the object in composition and forgets the object when the composition composable that called remember is removed from composition. Remember I said about leave the composition. So remember is kind of holding the memory for that variable when the recomposition happens. So if your composition get leave or your composition get destroyed, so that remember will also get destroyed because there is no point of storing the variable or whatever state you have provided to remember, right? So remember get destroyed or kind of forget objects. So when you leave the composition. Okay, we have other thing as well. So far anyone have any questions? I'm open to take until now. If you have any question, just comment it out. I will check it out on the comment. Could you please repeat what's the issue? What is the issue? Uh, can you ask this question on mic maybe? Could you please repeat what is the issue? Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you. So now next is that okay. Now remember is only for updating the value. Now you wanted to trigger update based on the observable, right? So this is where the mutable state interface comes up, right? So for example, let's say your data from the network get populated, right? Your view model get populated and you wanted to re-trigger the recomposition. So there are two ways to re-trigger the composition. First is update your parameter of compose, right? This is one way, right? This is the main way to start recomposition, right? You start re-executing the UI. So when re-executing start, the fresh UI gets shown to the user. So let's say scenario like when you get update data from the API service or maybe database or somewhere and you wanted to update the UI just like a live data, you have to use this mutable state. So what the mutable state will do, so whichever UI component is reading this value, as a text or maybe anything, whichever UI component reading this will get re-executed automatically, right? This is what the mutable state is for in the compose. So it is a API which is attached to the compiler runtime. So whenever the value get updated, for example like a live data, the recomposition starts automatically, right? So for example, you attach this value to a text field or maybe to the button, maybe to the list view or a lot of things, other things. So but whatever UI components is reading this value, so it will get decomposition automatically, right? It doesn't have to call that compose function again in order to perform the recomposition. So this is how you can create the mutable state. This is remember, mutable state. These are the three syntax sugar that you can use. By this, you can use by, in the Kotlin, and maybe you can use this destructive, constructor. This is how you can use this in the compose. Now you have mutable state. What you can do with the mutable state is basically, let's say in here, in the second example, in the value, what you can do in the case of text here, text is equal to value here. Directly you can use value if you're using by in the Kotlin and just update the value here on the value change. Okay. And whenever the on value get changed, your text get updated automatically. You don't have to call anything. So that's what the immutable state is for. And if you have other observable as well, you have flow or you have rx java, you can also, there are already created a extension function for that in order to create mutable state from live data, from flow, from rx java 2. So in the live data there is a live data object dot to observe state. This is how you can get the state object and you can use in the composition. So in the same way, flow is there. There is also extension function for flow. There is also extension function for RxJava. And if you have your own observable, you can also create a custom built-in or maybe extension function. You can see they already exists, already existed example for light data. Same way you can implement for your own observable class if you have any. Okay, now this is until we talk about the state. What is the state, or how you can remember your state for recomposition. Now let's talk about the stateful versus stateless. So what is the stateful? First of all, so stateful is basically creating a remember object in the compose that creates internal state. So what is the meaning by this? Meaning of this, that in your compose, if you create a remember class, oh sorry, if you create a remember object, that means you are creating an internal state for that particular function, right? So that is stateful. Now your function or your UI is stateful for that compose. So what is the disadvantage is that now if their other compose who is calling your compose cannot update the internal state, because internal state is that for particular compose, other person or other compose cannot update it, right? So now your function becomes stateful. And what is the stateless is basically when the composable does not hold any state. So what is the mean uses, advantage of stateless and stateful, I will be explaining in a minute. But basic difference is that if somebody created remember object, right, that means it containing state which make it stateful. And if some compose who's not creating any internal state get called stateless. So there is a lot of importance of stateless is basically it is reusable composable UI now. So if somebody wanted to provide their state to your compose, they can do it. For example, I have actually, okay. So for example, in this example, you see the text is also composed, right? This the way that you created hello content, same way text is get created in the compose library, right? So now they are providing this properties, right? So this is also a kind of state, right? So you are providing some state, and then text is take that state and create the UI from that, right? This is a kind of example of stateless. In the stateless, think as a text does not have any internal state. Whatever state that you are providing, text is just using those state over your those variables and updating the UI, right? That is the example of stateless. Now in the stateful hello content, it does not getting any value from the outside of world like as a parameter. So that is called as a stateful, right? Because all this state will handling or managing inside this composable itself. So that is what the stateful means. And stateless, whenever you take from parameters as a variable. Okay. You guys like understand stateful and stateless. Now state hoisting. So what's the state hoisting is that it's a pattern to convert from stateful to stateless. If you wanted to convert your stateful compose, so for example, in my case, I have created hello content, text fill and out text. Now I wanted to create, this is the stateful, right? That hello content composable is stateful. Now I wanted to create stateless, from stateful to stateless. So state hoisting is a technique which will convert your stateful compose to stateless, so that you can reuse from anywhere in the program. So how you can create it is basically, first make your remember object as a parameter, as a value. For example, okay, for example, let's go to here. Okay, now for example, let's say this is your name, right? You have added the name here, you have text, you have out text, right? Now what I will do, I will create a same function. Okay, I will create same name fun, hello. Now what I will do here, I will take name as a parameter from outside. Okay, and now I will call this text composable. Text is equal to name. So previously what I was doing is I was using remember. So for example, take it as a remember. Oh, sorry, make it as a remember. Sorry for like this bad writing. Yeah, this is kind of remember. So now whatever value that you have provided, first of all make it as a parameter of function, and then you have to also give the event as well. I'll explain you what the event is. So let's say, for example, in your UI of one composable, you have button and you have text in the same composable. Now you wanted to listen the button click as well, right? So for that, you can create this function as well, right? As a function as parameter on value change. So the callee of that composable UI will be using this and providing the new value based on that. So this is how you can create stateful, stateless composable from stateful. Whatever remember variable you have created, just make it as a parameter of that function. And if you have any event that you wanted to react on, make it also as a function here on value change and maybe on click listener, and then you can use that from your caller place. Whatever caller place you have, you can use it from there. So what is the importance of stateless? So important is the single source of truth. Now, since you're not managing your state inside the composable, you know, but whatever place I got this value will be a single source of truth, right? You don't have to call it again and again. You don't have to create another or duplicate, composable. Let's say in order to show my name from different screen, for example, let's say in first screen I wanted to show my name, in second screen of activity I also wanted to show my name. So I don't have to create different composable with same code. I can create a stateless function which is show my name, and then take a variable as a parameter of that function, right? So that's make it a single source of truth. Now whatever place I'm getting called, I know it will be a single source. So encapsulation. So stateful, which is holding state, is encapsulated. Stateless would not be encapsulated. So value will be provided from outside of that function. Shareable, definitely stateless will be a shareable since it does not hold any value. Interceptable, decoupled, it will be not dependent on itself, right? It will depend from the caller's perspective point of view. So it will not it will get decoupled, not coupled inside itself. Now, this is the example of state hoisting. So you can see here, I have provided name as a parameter of this hello content and own name change. So whenever the own value change get called as a as a click listener, or value get changed when user type in, so we will be calling this function. So you can see from callee perspective. So when the hello content is called again, now the name is a mutable state. So you can see in this on name change as a listener, it is updating the name here. Name is equal to it. Whatever value that on name or on value is providing, on value change is providing, it will get assigned to name. Now when the name get updated, since it's a mutable state, right? It's a mutable state. It will automatically recompose the hello content. Why the hello contents get recomposed? Because the parameter of hello content get updated, because name is updating, right? So now hello content get re-executed. Now it will go to text. It will check hello name. Now okay, name here is also get updated because the value from parameter is updated. So it will go re-executed again. Text out text field, it is also reading name as a value, then again it will get re-executed, right? Because parameters get changed. That is what the composition is for. So whatever UI component parameter get changed, that UI components get re-executed. That compose function get re-executed. So whoever reading this name will get compose. So let's say if I have third text UI component which is button, who's not reading name, now that button would not get recomposed, because that is not reading any value again, right? That is static. So only those UI component who's reading uh, are a variable who's getting change, right? That get recomposed. So in this case, text and outline text field get recomposed again because it's reading name. Now, but whenever user type K, again on value get called, on value change get called, name get updated, and name will get again, since hello content reading it up, it's a mutable state, it recompose automatically, it will go under down. Same loop happens again and again whenever user enter new values. So this is how you can create from stateful stateful to stateless. Now it does not handling any state, right, inside the hello content. Now hello content can be called from anywhere in the program, right? Now it's very reusable or shareable kind of thing, right? So this is what the state hoisting is for. You can see the hello screen is basically the top uh, composable function, and hello content is below of it. So it's sending the state and it is getting the event. The event is on click listener, on value change, or maybe on text watch or something. So the lower or maybe child is sending event and parent is sending state so that it get updated. So this is what the stateful stateless UI composable is. You have to, it's a good practice if you are creating stateless. And it is also fine. Okay, for example, somebody would say, I will not create stateful composer function anymore. No, if it is simple, if you are holding some name or simple variable in the function, it's fine. There's no issue with that stateful. But if you have lot of variable that is changing and depending on different source, please make it as a stateless so that different UI component can reuse your function, right? You reuse, they can provide their own state so that you can, so your UI is get updated accordingly, right? So if you have simple internal state, you don't have to create stateless, right? You can go with the stateful. But if you have different source of updating your UI, make it as a stateless. How you will make it as a stateless? Use this state hoisting technique. Whatever remember is there, just make it as a parameter. And if you have any event that you wanted to throw, which might update your name or whatever, you make it as a parameter. So in this case, like if you see on value change is having impact of changing this name, right? So that's why I make it as a function, as a event sending up. So you can I also do that. So this is the technique that you can use to create stateful function. Oh, sorry, stateless composable function. I'm getting confused between stateful and stateless, but yeah. Okay, okay. Now see this example as well. I'm using remember savable. Now since I'm using savable here, that means when the activity get destroyed and recreated again by configuration change and maybe system loaded again, my UI will not get reset. It will be using the same value from the previous one, right? So for that you can use this remember savable for restoring state. Now there, so now this is remember saver is only used for built-in data type, kind of int string. If you wanted to go with the custom classes or something like that, there are three ways that you can save your state when your activity get destroyed and maybe process death you wanted to handle. In this case you can use these things. So in the parcelizer, maybe I think, yeah, parcelize is a good way to make your custom class to to survive the configuration change. So you can make parcelize, and then you can use remember savable and just provide your city. It will get uh, parcelize and from one state. So whenever activity restarted, it will use the same data class from the previous UI. Same way, mapper saver is there. So in mapper saver is kind of key value pair. Okay, so you have to create a mapper saver first of all. We have to provide the key and then value, same like that. So you have to provide two things in mapper saver: how to save it, how to restore. So in the save, you have to provide map, hash map, and restore is basically you have to provide how you can restore the value. So you have to provide this one. And when you create the map saver, just use this map saver in the remember mutable state, and it will get save when the activity get destroyed and restore from restore, right? You understand, right? So save, whatever save hash map you provided, it gets saved in the some kind of bundle or something, and when the activity get recreated again, it will use your restore, whatever you provided as a hash map, to restore those values. Same way, if you wanted to use as a list, kind of, you wanted to save a list of city or maybe something like list, you can use the list saver. So this is the example of using list basically for saving your data. to handle the configuration changes or maybe process that. I think, yep, that's it. I These are the some references that you guys can use to learn more about this state. So this whole talk is about understanding the state of basics of state. I don't want you to go to different. There are a lot of things still there. I will be covering in next talk, which is regarding how you can. Okay, there is a managing state in compose. Now let's say this is for the simple example I took. Now you have a lot of different state that you wanted to store, right? You have UI state, you have business logic state, you have UI element state. So okay, what is the UI state? This your name where you wanted to update, maybe button value as well. What is the element UI element state? Is basically font. Let's say you wanted to update font. You guys do right in the XML as well. In the Java or maybe Kotlin, you use the dot set font. You may be using set background. So those are also state. You understand this, right? So if you have so many states in your compose, how you will handle those so many components, so many states? So that's for the another talk. Like in the next talk, I will be explaining you how you can handle bundle of states. So in this talk, I'm just wanted to give you introduction about the state so that you have the idea what the state means, how we can simple, how you can store the simple state, how you can create your own reusable composable using state hoisting, right? So this is just to give you guys a heads up for these states. So in the next talk, I will be talk about this managing state for the huge number of states that you have. Okay, I think that's it from this talk. I hope you guys learned something. Sorry. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, do let me know. Uh, stateful? No, no, it's not necessary. So stateful is basically some if anything that you are handling internal as an internal state that make half stateful and stateless as well. Like you have parameter as well as you're storing some state internally, so that makes like state kind of half stateful and stateless. But let's say for example it is important for your that UI function to store that state, right? You don't want to like expose that to the world. Then that's also called as a stateless, because if it's not required to expose, do not expose it. Like, or you are only exposing those parameter that is required, then it is only called stateless, right? You understand, right? Like, okay. uh yeah, I'll share the PPT as well in the group. Okay, hope you guys learned something, maybe 10% or 20%. I know it's still too much to learn these states, but yeah, you guys the had idea what the state is. I'm open to take any questions if you have like anything. Okay, I'll take it as a no, I think. Yeah, thanks Sumit bro. Yeah, Malika, yeah. You have any questions? Previous video? Oh, okay. I think that I will share. I have a uploaded on YouTube. I'll share with you. Thank you. Okay, that's it then from my side. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Bye, guys.